Welcome to World Information HD, the channel where rare treasures from American coin history come alive. In today's video, we're counting down the top 17 most valuable rare USA Lincoln pennies and Washington $quarter coins that have shocked collectors and sold for millions. If you've ever wondered whether the change in your pocket could be a hidden fortune, stay tuned. You might just discover a coin that could change your life. Today, we are going to explore one of the most intriguing coins from the late 20th century. It may look ordinary at first glance, but it carries history, collector demand, and the possibility of surprising value. I am talking about the United States of America 1978 no-mint mark Lincoln 1-cent penny. At first glance, a 1978 penny seems like the kind of coin you wouldn't think twice about. It's small, coppery, and one that you've probably seen thousands of times before. But as every coin collector knows, appearances can be deceiving. Sometimes, a coin that looks plain and ordinary to the untrained eye could actually be worth far more than just a single cent. And that is exactly what makes the 1978 Lincoln cent so fascinating. Before we dive into the values and the details that make these pennies so special, let's take a moment to go back in time. The year is 1978. Jimmy Carter is President of the United States. The average price of gasoline is about 65 cents per gallon. The country is in the middle of economic struggles, inflation is rising, and yet the U.S. Mint is still busy striking millions upon millions of coins to meet everyday demand. Among those coins is the familiar Lincoln penny. The Lincoln cent, first introduced in 1909 to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, was already a long-standing piece of American coinage history by 1978. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the obverse features the bust of Abraham Lincoln facing right, with the word liberty to the left, the year of mintage to the right, and the motto "In God We Trust" arching above. On the reverse, from 1959 to 2008, the design featured the Lincoln Memorial, created by Frank Gasparo, replacing the earlier wheat ears design. By 1978, the penny was still composed primarily of copper, 95% copper and 5% zinc. This copper composition gives these coins their characteristic reddish-brown hue. Little did anyone know that just a few years later, in 1982, the U.S. Mint would make a drastic change, switching the penny to a primarily zinc composition with only a thin copper plating, due to the rising cost of copper. That makes the 1978 penny part of the last era of true copper cents. For collectors, that alone adds interest. Now, what does no mint mark mean? When you look at a coin, the mint mark tells you where it was struck. The United States Mint has facilities in several locations: Philadelphia, Denver, San Francisco, and sometimes West Point. A coin minted in Denver has a small D mark. A coin from San Francisco might show an S. But coins struck at the Philadelphia Mint often carry no mint mark at all, especially in this period. So when we talk about the 1978 no mint mark penny, we are specifically referring to pennies struck in Philadelphia. These no mint mark coins make up a huge portion of the pennies you might find from 1978, and they are essential to understanding the full picture of that year's mintage. In fact, the Philadelphia Mint produced an astounding number of pennies in 1978. Over 5.5 billion of them. Yes, billions with a B. That massive number might make you think these coins are common and worthless, but coin values don't just depend on how many were made. They depend on survival in high grade, rarity of condition, collector demand, and sometimes errors or varieties. The vast majority of 1978 no-mint mark Lincoln cents are worth face value. You might have hundreds of them jingling in jars, drawers, or piggy banks, and most will never be worth more than a penny. But here's the key: when you find a coin in exceptional condition, or one with certain desirable features, it suddenly becomes something much more valuable. Condition plays a huge role in value. Coins are graded on a scale from poor to mint state, with professional grading companies assigning numbers from 1 to 70. A 1978 penny in circulated condition, meaning it has been used in everyday transactions, typically shows signs of wear. It might be dull, scratched, or even discolored. Such coins rarely bring any premium. But when you find a coin in uncirculated or near perfect condition, with full details and minimal blemishes, that's when collectors are willing to pay significant money. Imagine a penny that has sat untouched since the day it was struck, showing crisp details on Lincoln's hair and beard, a clean strike on the Lincoln Memorial, and luster that shines under the light. These kinds of coins are the ones that stand out at auctions and among collectors. They are rare because most coins entered circulation immediately and endured the rough handling of daily commerce. Beyond condition, collectors also look for varieties and errors. These are coins that, due to mistakes in the minting process, look slightly different from the rest. Some 1978 Lincoln cents exhibit small variations in the way the letters or numbers were struck. For example, you might encounter doubled die varieties where certain details appear doubled. Even minor varieties can make a coin much more desirable. Errors are another exciting area. Pennies struck off-center, with missing elements, or on the wrong planchets are highly collectible. Imagine finding a 1978 penny struck partly off the edge of the coin, or one struck with an unusually thick or thin planchet. These types of coins are genuine mint errors and can fetch significant premiums, depending on their uniqueness. So, how much can a 1978 no-mint marked penny actually be worth? For an ordinary circulated penny from that year, the answer is 1 cent. But for coins in higher grades, values increase quickly. A lightly circulated coin might sell for a few cents. A coin graded mint state 65 or higher could bring several dollars or more, depending on collector interest. And when we move into the top end of the grading scale, with coins in mint state 67 or even 68, that's when the numbers start to climb into the hundreds or thousands of dollars. Collectors prize these top-grade coins because they are so difficult to find. Out of billions struck, only a tiny fraction remain in pristine condition. And among those, only a handful might be graded at the highest levels. That scarcity drives demand and pushes prices upward. Think about it this way. Most people who saved 1978 pennies tossed them into jars or spent them again, never thinking twice. Few were carefully preserved right from the start. That's why coins that survived the past 4 decades in perfect shape are true rarities. It's also worth noting that coin collecting itself adds to the demand. The Lincoln Cent series is one of the most popular collecting areas in the entire world. Millions of people, both new hobbyists and seasoned professionals, build sets of Lincoln Cents by date and mint mark. That means they need a coin from 1978 Philadelphia to complete their collection. While ordinary coins are easy to find, those chasing top-quality examples will bid strongly against one another when rare gems hit the market. Auctions provide some of the best evidence of how valuable these coins can become. Time and again, seemingly ordinary Lincoln Cents have stunned bidders when they appear in spectacular condition. Collectors are often willing to pay far more than expected, simply because high-grade examples are so rare. That's why the 1978 no-mint mark penny has made headlines among coin enthusiasts. It's also important to remember the historical significance of the Lincoln Cent series itself. From 1909 onward, it has remained the longest-running coin design in United States history. Generations of Americans have grown up with these coins in their pockets. The design is instantly recognizable, a symbol of everyday life, yet at the same time, each year and mint mark carries its own story. The 1978 penny tells the story of a country in transition, just before the coin's composition changed forever. It bridges the gap between the old copper cents and the modern zinc versions we see today. So, the next time you come across a 1978 penny, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. Check the surfaces, inspect the details, and see whether it might be a hidden treasure. While most will only be worth a cent, the exceptional ones have proven to be worth far more than anyone might guess. And for those wondering what the absolute peak value of a 1978 no-mint mark Lincoln penny can be, the answer is extraordinary. In the finest known condition, one of these coins has been valued at $28,763. The year 1970 might feel like it was just yesterday for many collectors, but in the world of coin collecting, it already stands as a fascinating era in American numismatic history. When we talk about the Washington Quarter Series, collectors often rush toward the early silver issues from the 1930s through 1964. But what if I told you that a quarter minted in the 1970s, a coin most Americans once spent without a second thought, has become one of the most intriguing and valuable pieces to grace the pockets of everyday citizens? Today, we dive deep into the story of the 1970 D Mint Mark Washington quarter dollar, a coin that has stunned both collectors and historians with its rarity, errors, and its astonishing market value. Let's begin by stepping back in time. The 1970s in the United States were a period of tremendous cultural change. The Vietnam War was ongoing, the civil rights movement had reshaped the American landscape, and technology was advancing in ways people could barely comprehend. Yet, in the quiet halls of the Denver Mint, where millions of coins were struck each year, a batch of Washington quarters began rolling off the presses. To the casual eye, these coins looked ordinary, just another 25-cent piece meant for parking meters, vending machines, and grocery stores. But hidden among the millions of coins minted in Denver that year, a few very unusual quarters slipped into circulation, and they would later spark some of the most intense excitement in modern coin collecting. To understand why, we need to talk about the Washington Quarter series itself. First issued in 1932 to commemorate the 200th birthday of George Washington, the coin quickly replaced the standing Liberty Quarter and became a fixture in American coinage. For decades, the Washington Quarter remained consistent in design, but in 1965, something monumental changed. The nation was facing a coin shortage, and the rising price of silver made it too costly for the mint to keep producing quarters in their traditional 90% silver composition. Starting that year, the mint shifted to a copper-nickel clad composition, a copper core sandwiched between layers of nickel. By the time we reached 1970, every quarter in circulation followed this new clad format. So why would a 1970 D Washington quarter be worth more than its face value, let alone thousands of dollars? The answer lies in the small number of coins that contained unusual minting errors, striking quirks, and anomalies that turned these everyday coins into treasures. Among the most famous stories tied to the 1970 D quarter involves a fascinating overstrike error. Imagine a coin struck not just once, but mistakenly over a coin from another country. It sounds like something impossible, but these accidents did occur, especially when foreign coin planchets were being prepared at U.S. mint facilities for export. Collectors have discovered 1970 D quarters that were struck over coins from other nations, making them some of the rarest and most desirable error coins ever uncovered. These pieces are not only errors but also historical curiosities, representing a strange collision of American and foreign coinage history. But beyond these dramatic overstrikes, the 1970 D quarter is also famous for more subtle variations. Collectors have reported doubled dies, coins where the image, such as the lettering or date, appears to have been struck twice, slightly offset, creating a doubled effect visible to the naked eye under magnification. These doubled dies can be found on either the obverse, where George Washington's iconic profile appears, or the reverse, where the bold eagle spreads its wings across the coin. In the case of the 1970 D quarter, some examples show doubling in the motto, "In God We Trust," or in the date itself. Doubling can also be spotted in the inscriptions, "United States of America," and "Quarter Dollar." Such details, often overlooked by the average spender, become highly prized by those in the numismatic community. A doubled die is not just a mistake, it's a frozen glimpse into the mechanics of coin production, and it adds layers of rarity to the coin. Even more intriguing are the small die variations and planchet errors that surfaced in the 1970 Denver strikes. A few quarters exhibit off-center strikes, where the design is visibly shifted away from the coin's center, leaving part of the surface blank. Others feature clipped planchets, where a piece of the metal blank was cut incorrectly before the coin was struck, resulting in a curved missing portion along the coin's edge. Each of these errors tells a story of the minting process gone awry, and each transforms an ordinary quarter into a collectible marvel. But let's also consider the historical importance of the Denver Mint in this narrative. By 1970, the Denver Mint was one of the busiest coin production facilities in the world, churning out billions of coins annually to meet America's ever-growing demand. With such staggering output, it is no surprise that small mistakes occasionally slip through. Yet the survival of these flawed coins into circulation, and their discovery decades later, speaks volumes about the patience and keen eyes of collectors. Now, the true magic of the 1970 D quarter lies not just in its errors or peculiarities but in the reaction of the numismatic world. As these unusual coins began appearing in collections and auctions, they drew attention for their uniqueness and scarcity. Collectors who once overlooked modern clad quarters suddenly realized that the 1970 D issues could hold extraordinary value. The thrill of searching through pocket change, bank rolls, or old coin jars at home was reignited by the possibility of stumbling upon one of these elusive gems. Auction houses across the United States have since showcased examples of the 1970 D quarter with impressive results. Error coins, especially those with dramatic overstrikes or clear doubled dies, have sold for prices that defied belief compared to the coin's humble 25-cent denomination. Stories of collectors who discovered these quarters tucked away in family change jars or inherited collections have only fueled the fascination, proving once again that treasures can be hiding in plain sight. For newer collectors entering the hobby, the 1970 D Washington quarter represents an exciting case study. It demonstrates the importance of paying attention to details, of examining coins carefully, and of recognizing that rarity can sometimes appear where least expected. While many collectors naturally gravitate toward older silver quarters or key dates like the 1932 D or 1932 S, the modern era still offers surprises. The 1970 D quarter reminds us that numismatics is not just about age but about rarity, uniqueness, and historical intrigue. When examining your own coins, here's what to look for if you want to spot a potentially valuable 1970 D quarter. First, check the obverse and reverse under magnification for signs of doubling in the lettering or date. Pay close attention to the motto, the inscriptions, and the word Liberty. Second, examine the alignment of the strike. Does the design appear centered, or is it shifted? Off-center errors are often noticeable even without a magnifying glass. Third, inspect the edges of the coin for signs of clipping or irregularity in the metal. And finally, if you encounter a 1970 D quarter that seems dramatically unusual, such as evidence of an overstrike, it may be worth having the coin authenticated by a professional grading service. The excitement of this coin lies not only in its potential value but also in its role as a piece of living history. Every quarter minted in Denver in 1970 carried the image of George Washington, a reminder of the nation's first president. Yet hidden among them were pieces that defied the ordinary, coins that slipped through the cracks of quality control and became symbols of rarity. These coins are tangible connections to the year 1970, a year of cultural shifts, political challenges, and everyday life in America. The story of the 1970 D quarter also underscores a broader truth in coin collecting. Rarity and value often hide in the most unexpected places. Millions of these coins were minted, but only a small number hold the key features that make them worth far beyond their face value. It is a reminder to every collector, whether beginner or expert, to never dismiss a coin without giving it a closer look. So, after all this history, excitement, and the exploration of errors and rarity, you may be wondering just how much one of these special 1970 D Washington quarters could be worth today. The answer is nothing short of astonishing. While most quarters from this year remain ordinary pocket change, the rarest and most remarkable examples of the 1970 D mint mark quarter dollar have sold for as high as $33,887. The year was 1974. America was in the midst of cultural change, political upheaval, and economic challenges. Gas shortages, inflation, and the shadow of Watergate loomed over the nation. But tucked away in everyday transactions, jingling in pockets, and passed from hand to hand at grocery stores, diners, and movie theaters, was a small piece of metal that would later capture the imagination of collectors and coin enthusiasts alike: the Washington quarter. And among those quarters, one particular issue has risen to extraordinary fame: the 1974 no-mint mark Washington quarter dollar. At first glance, it might seem like any ordinary coin. Its obverse still carried the familiar bust of George Washington, designed by John Flanagan in 1932, commemorating the bicentennial of Washington's birth. Its reverse still bore the proud image of a heraldic eagle, wings spread wide, arrows clutched firmly in its talons, symbolizing strength and preparedness. The coin was struck in copper nickel clad, a composition introduced just a few years earlier after silver was removed from circulating quarters in 1965. To the casual spender, there was nothing unusual about it at all. It bought a cup of coffee, paid for a phone call, or slid into an arcade machine just like any other quarter of the time. But coin collectors know better. The story of the 1974 Washington quarter, especially those struck without a mint mark, is one of rarity, subtle detail, and hidden value. To understand why this quarter has become so interesting, we need to take a step back into the workings of the United States Mint. Coins produced in Philadelphia during this period were typically struck without a mint mark. Denver coins bore the small d, and San Francisco coins, when minted for proof sets, carried the s. For decades, Philadelphia coins had no mint mark, and this wasn't considered an error at all, it was simply standard practice. But the rarity and the worth of a coin depend on far more than its place of origin. Condition, strike quality, and collector demand all play a vital role. The year 1974 holds a special fascination for collectors because it sits on the edge of history. Just 2 years later, in 1976, America celebrated its bicentennial, and quarters featured a temporary redesign with the iconic drummer boy reverse. This meant that the 1974 quarter was one of the last in the classic Eagleback series before the dramatic change. Collectors often seek coins from transitional years, and 1974 fits perfectly into that narrative. Now imagine you're a collector, sifting through rolls of quarters, your eyes scanning for unusual details. Perhaps it's a double-die variety, where the lettering appears thickened or shadowed. Perhaps it's a coin struck off-center, missing part of its design. Or maybe it's one of those incredibly rare examples where the minting process left behind a flaw or anomaly. These errors can transform a simple 25-cent piece into a collector's treasure. The 1974 no-mint mark quarter has been found in remarkably high grades, preserved by chance in rolls, bags, or forgotten collections. When submitted to professional grading services, these coins sometimes receive exceptional designations, MS-65, MS-66, and even MS-67. The difference between a circulated coin and one of these high-grade survivors is astonishing. While a worn example might be worth little more than face value, a pristine, lustrous, sharply struck specimen becomes a coveted prize. Collectors are drawn to these coins for more than just their rarity. They represent a tangible link to history, a piece of 1970s America captured in metal. The decade was filled with monumental events: the end of the Vietnam War, the resignation of a president, the birth of modern computing, and the rise of disco culture. Every coin struck in that era carries the silent witness of those times. Imagine holding one of these quarters in your hand. It may have been used in 1974 to buy gasoline when prices had suddenly spiked due to the oil crisis. It may have paid for a movie ticket to see The Godfather Part 2 in 1974 or Jaws in 1975. It may have been exchanged in a diner where conversations about Watergate filled the air. That little quarter, unnoticed and unremarkable in its day, today commands attention as a symbol of endurance and hidden value. When we look at the details of the 1974 quarter, certain features stand out to collectors. The sharpness of Washington's profile, the clarity of the lettering, liberty, the precision in the phrase, "In God we trust," and the crispness of the eagle's feathers all play a part in determining grade and desirability. Coins with full detail, strong luster, and minimal contact marks are exceedingly rare. But why does this coin in particular fetch such strong interest among enthusiasts? One reason lies in its place within the broader story of Washington quarters. By 1974, the series had already been in production for over 40 years, but the design remained largely unchanged. Collectors who assemble complete sets of Washington quarters from 1932 onward pay close attention to each year and mint mark, hunting down not only the key rarities of the early years struck in silver but also the more modern examples that are difficult to find in perfect condition. Philadelphia coins of 1974, while minted in large numbers, are difficult to locate in top grades. The minting process and handling at the time often left coins with scratches, bag marks, and weak strikes. The fact that some examples have survived in nearly flawless condition makes them prized by numismatists. In recent years, as interest in coin collecting has surged thanks to online auctions, numismatic forums, and educational videos, coins like the 1974 no-mint mark Washington quarter have captured a wider audience. What was once the domain of seasoned collectors has now become accessible to anyone curious enough to search through change, visit a coin shop, or browse an online marketplace. Imagine the thrill of discovery. A person searching through an old jar of coins left by a grandparent might stumble upon a quarter from 1974. At first, it looks ordinary, just another coin in a sea of copper and nickel. But under closer inspection, its date, lack of mint mark, and superb condition reveal its true nature. What was once overlooked as pocket change transforms into a piece of history worth holding onto. The emotional pull of such discoveries cannot be overstated. For many collectors, it isn't only about the monetary value. It's about the story, the journey, and the idea that history can be hidden in plain sight. Each coin tells a tale of the minting presses that struck it, the hands that passed it along, and the decades it survived before finally being recognized. For the 1974 Washington quarter, the story continues to evolve. Auction houses record impressive sales, with collectors bidding fiercely for the best preserved examples. Each sale adds another chapter to the coin's legacy, drawing more eyes to the hidden treasures still circulating or resting quietly in collections. If you are watching this video, you may be wondering, could I have one of these coins? Could there be a 1974 no-mint mark Washington quarter tucked away in my pocket change, waiting to be discovered? The answer is yes. Though high-grade specimens are rare, ordinary examples still circulate, and every search holds the promise of discovery. Coin collecting is not only a hobby but a journey of curiosity, patience, and sometimes incredible reward. The thrill lies not only in the coins themselves but in what they represent, the history, the craftsmanship, and the chance that one small piece of metal could carry extraordinary value. And now we arrive at the question that everyone asks: just how much could one of these coins be worth? While many examples of the 1974 no-mint mark Washington quarter are valued modestly in lower conditions, the highest graded, most pristine, and most desirable examples have achieved breathtaking prices in auctions. Collectors, eager to secure a top-grade piece, have driven the value far beyond what anyone could have imagined when these coins first left the mint more than 40 years ago. The record for such a coin stands at an astonishing $48,877. Welcome back to World Information HD, the place where history, money, and hidden treasures meet. Today, we are diving into one of the most fascinating coins of the modern era, a piece of metal that millions of people handled daily without a second thought. I'm talking about the 1978 no-mint mark Washington quarter dollar. At first glance, it may appear to be nothing more than an everyday piece of change, something that jingles in your pocket and goes unnoticed. But as we will soon discover, even ordinary-looking coins can hide extraordinary stories. To understand the true value and significance of this quarter, we have to rewind to the beginning of its story. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th birthday of George Washington, the first President of the United States. The design by John Flanagan featured Washington's profile on the obverse and a majestic bald eagle on the reverse. Over the decades, this design would become iconic, representing stability and trust, since quarters were among the most widely circulated coins in the country. By 1978, the Washington quarter had already been in production for more than 4 decades, and most people assumed they were all alike. But as collectors know, no 2 minting years are exactly the same. Small details, errors, and mint mark differences can turn an average coin into something incredibly special. In 1978, the United States Mint produced quarters at several facilities, primarily the Philadelphia Mint, the Denver Mint, and the San Francisco Mint. Now here's where things get very interesting. Coins produced in Denver bear a small D mint mark, those struck in San Francisco usually have an S mark, while those from Philadelphia traditionally carried no mint mark at all during that era. So when we talk about the 1978 no-mint mark Washington quarter dollar, we are specifically looking at the Philadelphia issues. At the time, this was standard practice. However, decades later, collectors began to pay close attention to these coins, especially those that survived in pristine condition or contained small varieties and striking errors. The late 1970s were a fascinating time for U.S. coinage. Inflation was high, the value of silver had fluctuated dramatically earlier in the decade, and the mint had already switched to a copper-nickel clad composition instead of silver back in 1965. This meant that by 1978, all Washington quarters were being struck in a layered metal composition of copper and nickel rather than pure silver. Because of this, many people assumed that none of the quarters from the period could be truly valuable. After all, without silver, how could these coins possibly be worth more than face value? And yet, as collectors and numismatists have proven time and again, rarity and condition are just as important, if not more so, than the metal content of a coin. Imagine this scenario. Millions of 1978 quarters left the Philadelphia Mint, but the vast majority entered circulation immediately. They rattled in cash registers, clinked in vending machines, paid for bus fares, and passed from hand to hand countless times. By the time collectors in the 1980s and 1990s began looking back at these coins, most examples were scratched, worn, and dirty. Very few remained in untouched, gem-quality condition straight from the mint. And those that did were often overlooked because they didn't carry a mint mark and seemed so ordinary. That is where the hidden treasure lies. Now let's talk about condition. In the world of coin collecting, the grade of a coin is everything. Coins are carefully examined and graded on a scale from 1 to 70, with mint state 70 representing absolute perfection, no scratches, no wear, no flaws. Finding a 1978 no-mint mark Washington quarter dollar in high mint state grades is extremely rare, because so many were used daily. A collector lucky enough to discover such a piece is essentially holding a time capsule, a coin preserved exactly as it left the mint in 1978. And when a coin is that well preserved, its value skyrockets. But condition isn't the only factor that excites collectors. Error coins and varieties are also part of the equation. In 1978, like in other years, the minting process wasn't always perfect. Striking errors such as off-center strikes, double die obverse or reverses, filled letters, and misaligned dies all created small groups of unique coins. These pieces, though technically mistakes, are prized by collectors because they are one-of-a-kind artifacts. A double die 1978 quarter without a mint mark can look ordinary to an untrained eye, but to a numismatist, it's a prize worth holding on to. So why does the 1978 no-mint mark Washington quarter dollar stand out among the many millions that were produced? The answer lies in scarcity at the top levels of condition and the passion of collectors who recognize its hidden beauty. Think about it this way. Anyone can find a circulated 1978 quarter in pocket change, but only a handful of people in the world may ever own one in pristine, gem-quality condition. That rarity creates competition, and competition creates value. When two or more collectors desperately want the same coin for their collections, bidding wars erupt, and prices climb higher and higher. This brings us to the auction world, where many of the most valuable coins have made history. Auction houses specialize in bringing together rare coins and the collectors willing to pay a premium for them. Over the years, 1978 no-mint mark quarters in top condition have surfaced at auctions and stunned the numismatic community with their hammer prices. The realization that a seemingly ordinary modern coin could fetch thousands of dollars changed the way people looked at pocket change forever. But beyond money, coins like this represent history. They are artifacts of American life in the 1970s, carrying with them the story of an era. Imagine the year 1978. Jimmy Carter was president. Inflation was on everyone's mind, movies like Grease and Superman were playing in theaters, and people were still using pay phones and jukeboxes with quarters. Every time someone held one of these coins, they were participating in a small piece of that cultural moment. Today, when collectors study a 1978 quarter in mint condition, they are not just examining metal, they are holding a tangible piece of American history. The thrill of coin collecting comes from the hunt. Thousands of people across the country search through their change every day, hoping to discover a hidden treasure. Some find wheat pennies, others stumble across silver dimes, and a lucky few might one day notice that the 1978 quarter in their hand is sharper, shinier, and more flawless than the rest. Stories abound of people who unknowingly kept jars of change for decades, only to discover later that one coin among them was worth a small fortune. That possibility keeps the excitement alive. What makes the 1978 no-mint mark Washington quarter dollar truly fascinating is how it defies expectations. It doesn't contain silver, it doesn't have a flashy mint mark, and yet in the right condition, it can command an incredible price. This teaches us an important lesson: never underestimate the value of what seems ordinary. Sometimes the most valuable treasures hide in plain sight. Collectors today keep their eyes peeled not just for old coins but for quality. Grading services such as PCGS and NGC authenticate and certify coins, giving buyers confidence in their rarity and condition. Once a 1978 no-mint mark quarter achieves a high grade from one of these respected services, its value is locked in and can command serious attention on the open market. Think of the dedication required to build a complete Washington quarter set, with every year and every mint mark included. For many collectors, filling the 1978 slot with a superb example is a challenge worth pursuing. That chase, that determination to complete the puzzle, adds to the desirability of the coin. And when only a handful of coins exist in top condition, the price reflects the passion of those collectors. So the next time you look at the change in your pocket, remember this story. That dull-looking quarter might seem like nothing, but history has shown us that appearances can be deceiving. Somewhere out there, hidden in a roll of quarters or tucked away in a forgotten jar, could be a coin that changes someone's life. And now, for the question you've been waiting for: how much can a 1978 no-mint mark Washington quarter dollar be worth if you're fortunate enough to find one in the finest possible condition? The answer is an astonishing $45,656. Welcome back to World Information HD, where history, mystery, and hidden treasures from everyday life come alive. Today, we're going to journey into the fascinating world of American coinage, focusing on one of the most overlooked yet surprisingly collectible coins in circulation, the 1980 Philadelphia Mint Washington quarter dollar. Now, at first glance, a quarter from 1980 may not seem like much. After all, these coins are still out there in circulation, being used every single day at gas stations, vending machines, grocery stores, and tucked away in old jars of change across the country. But as you'll soon discover, some of these ordinary-looking quarters can actually carry stories of history, subtle design changes, minting quirks, and in rare cases, an impressive collector's value. So stick with me to the end, because you'll be shocked at how much one of these coins has sold for. To understand why the 1980 quarter holds any significance at all, we first have to look at its place in American coinage history. The Washington quarter was first introduced back in 1932, designed to honor the 200th birthday of George Washington, the first President of the United States. The design by John Flanagan became instantly iconic, featuring Washington's profile on the obverse, with the familiar eagle on the reverse. For decades, this design remained unchanged, serving as a constant reminder of the nation's heritage every time Americans reached into their pockets. By 1980, the Washington quarter had already been in circulation for nearly 50 years. However, an important shift had occurred 15 years earlier. Up until 1964, quarters were made of 90% silver, giving them intrinsic precious metal value. But due to rising silver prices, the U.S. Mint transitioned in 1965 to a clad composition of copper and nickel. This meant that quarters minted from 1965 onwards were no longer silver but instead a sandwich of copper core with nickel layers. By 1980, every quarter you'd find in circulation carried this clad composition, making it less precious in metal content but still extremely useful as an everyday coin. Now, what sets the 1980 Philadelphia Mint quarter apart from others? First, we need to talk about the mint mark. Before 1980, Philadelphia Mint coins did not carry a P mint mark. But beginning in that very year, the Philadelphia Mint started striking coins with a small P mark just to the right of Washington's ponytail, near the ribbon. This makes the 1980 quarter historically significant. It was the first year that P Mint mark appeared on a U.S. quarter intended for general circulation. That alone makes the 1980 P quarter worth noticing to collectors, because it marked a change in the Mint's long-standing tradition. It's like a subtle birthmark in the history of American coins, a tiny detail that might not catch the eye of the average person but is immediately spotted by numismatists and coin enthusiasts. But of course, not every 1980 P quarter is valuable. Most of them are still worth their face value of 25 cents and continue to circulate freely. However, the factors that can increase the value of one of these coins include rarity and condition, errors during minting, and overall demand in the collector's market. Let's talk about condition first. The majority of 1980 quarters have been heavily circulated for over 4 decades. This means most show scratches, dings, and general wear, which lowers their appeal to collectors. But every once in a while, a coin turns up in pristine condition, often referred to as mint state. These coins were either never used in circulation or were preserved carefully from the time of minting. A high-grade mint state coin with sharp details, full luster, and virtually no wear can fetch a premium. Grading services like PCGS or NGC often certify these coins on a numerical scale, where a grade of MS65 or higher indicates a truly impressive specimen. Beyond condition, what really excites collectors are minting errors. And the 1980 quarters are no exception. Errors happen when something goes wrong during the minting process, creating coins that look different from the intended design. Instead of being discarded, many of these error coins make it out into circulation, where they are eventually discovered and prized for their uniqueness. Some error types that can be found in 1980 P quarters include off-center strikes, where part of the design is missing because the blank planchet was misaligned. There are also doubled dies, where certain parts of the lettering or portrait appear doubled due to a misstrike in the die itself. In rare cases, wrong planchet errors occur, where a quarter design is struck on a blank intended for a different denomination, like a nickel or a dime. Each of these unusual mistakes transforms an ordinary coin into a rare collectible, often commanding high prices at auctions. Think about it for a moment. You could be holding a quarter in your hand, maybe just pocket change from a soda machine, and without even realizing it, you might have a rare misstrike that could be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. That's the kind of treasure hunt that keeps coin collectors excited. Every coin in circulation carries the possibility of being something more than just change. But even if your 1980 P quarter is not an error coin, pristine condition alone can boost its value. In fact, collectors are known to pay far more than face value for coins graded at MS67 or higher, since they are incredibly scarce after more than 40 years of circulation. Imagine how rare it is to find a coin that old, still looking like it just left the mint yesterday. Beyond errors and condition, historical context also plays a role. As mentioned earlier, the introduction of the P Mint mark in 1980 marked a turning point in U.S. coinage. That small detail makes this coin instantly recognizable as part of a milestone in minting history. Coins tied to firsts are often popular among collectors because they represent something significant in the evolution of U.S. currency. Just as the 1932 quarter is sought after as the first Washington quarter ever, the 1980 P quarter is valued as the first with its P Mint mark for Philadelphia. Collectors also consider population reports, the number of coins graded at certain levels by certification companies. If only a handful of 1980 P quarters exist in ultra-high grades, then demand from collectors can push their prices much higher. When supply is low and demand is high, values climb, sometimes to astonishing levels. And that brings us to the most fascinating part of today's story: just how much can a 1980 P Washington quarter actually be worth? The truth may surprise you. While the vast majority of these coins remain at face value, the rarest examples in flawless condition or featuring dramatic mint errors have crossed into staggering territory. In fact, at auction, one of these 1980 Philadelphia Mint quarters sold for an unbelievable amount: $73,766. Think about that for a second. A coin that most people would casually spend at a vending machine or toss into a tip jar sold for tens of thousands of dollars simply because of its rarity, condition, and historical importance. That's the magic of coin collecting. Ordinary objects we use every day can carry extraordinary hidden value. So the next time you come across a 1980 quarter with a little P mark near Washington's ponytail, take a closer look. Check the condition, examine it carefully under good light, and maybe even consider having it graded if it looks exceptionally well preserved. You never know, you might be holding a small fortune right in your hands. And that wraps up our deep dive into the 1980p Washington quarter dollar. What seemed like just another coin has turned out to be a piece of American history, a milestone in minting practices, and potentially a valuable treasure. From its introduction of the P mint mark, to the allure of rare errors, to its surprising auction record, this coin proves that sometimes, the most unassuming pieces of change can carry the most fascinating stories. If you enjoyed learning about this rare and valuable quarter, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to World Information HD. We've got more stories coming your way about the coins, currencies, and collectibles that could be sitting in your pocket right now. Thanks for watching, and remember, every coin has a story, and some stories are worth far more than their face value. Welcome back to the channel where history, collecting, and hidden treasures of the United States of America come alive. Today we're diving deep into the world of pennies, but not just any penny. This is the 1980 Denver Mint Lincoln 1-cent coin. At first glance, it may seem like just another small piece of copper-plated zinc that many people overlook or leave scattered in jars, drawers, and old piggy banks. But once we peel back the layers of history, minting details, errors, and the story of collectors who value it, we discover that this particular penny can be far more than just a single cent. To truly understand why the 1980 Lincoln cent stands out, let's rewind time and set the stage. The year was 1980, an era defined by change in America. The nation had just emerged from the turbulent 1970s, facing inflation, rising gas prices, and a wave of cultural and political shifts. Pennies, although seemingly insignificant in face value, were still part of every American's daily life. From vending machines to pocket change at the grocery store, these copper coins represented more than money. They symbolized continuity, history, and even tradition. The design of the Lincoln cent in 1980 was already familiar to Americans for over 7 decades. It was first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. Victor David Brenner, the designer, created the portrait that still graces the obverse, or front, of the coin. The reverse in 1980 still featured the Lincoln Memorial, which had been introduced in 1959 to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. By 1980, the coin was an everyday staple, simple, trustworthy, and deeply ingrained in American culture. But what makes the 1980 Lincoln penny more than just spare change? The answer lies in 3 key areas: the Denver Mint production, the composition of the coin, and the varieties and errors that intrigue collectors. Let's begin with the Denver Mint itself. Coins marked with a D Mint mark are struck in Denver, Colorado, one of the primary mints of the United States. The Denver facility was producing millions upon millions of coins during this period, and the 1980 penny was no exception. In fact, billions of these pennies were struck at the Denver Mint alone. With such high mintage numbers, one might assume that every single penny from that year is common, unremarkable, and worth no more than its face value. However, that assumption is exactly what makes the rare gems so valuable. When billions of coins are made, the smallest errors, variations, or exceptional conditions become treasures that stand out in a sea of sameness. Next, let's talk about the composition. In 1980, pennies were still made primarily of copper. Each cent was struck with a composition of 95% copper and 5% zinc. This is important to note because just 2 years later, in 1982, the U.S. Mint made a drastic change due to rising copper prices. After 1982, pennies were switched to primarily zinc cores with only a thin copper plating. That means the 1980 penny represents one of the final years of the true copper cents making it not only nostalgic but also desirable for collectors who value the weight, color, and authenticity of these pre-1982 coins. Beyond history and composition, the real thrill of coin collecting often comes from era coins and condition. Even the most ordinary penny can transform into a prized rarity when struck under unusual circumstances. For the 1980 penny, collectors search for several known varieties and errors that can dramatically increase its worth. One notable error involves doubling. A double die occurs when the design is imprinted onto the die more than once in a slightly different position, leading to a coin that shows doubled features. For the 1980 penny, some examples show doubling in the lettering of "In God We Trust" or "Liberty." These double die errors are rare, but when found, they can command serious premiums in the coin market. Another error type includes off-center strikes. Imagine a coin where Lincoln's portrait is shifted dramatically to one side, with part of the design missing. Off-center strikes are always a collector favorite because they are visually striking and undeniably unique. A 1980 penny with a significant off-center strike in high grade can catch the attention of any serious numismatist. There are also die cracks, where the minting die develops fractures and leaves raised lines on the coin, and clipped planchets, where a portion of the coin's metal blank is missing. Each of these errors creates a story. Each one reminds us that despite modern technology, the minting process is still subject to human and mechanical imperfections, and these imperfections transform ordinary coins into conversation pieces and collectibles. But what about condition? Condition, or grade, is the lifeblood of value in coin collecting. A penny that has been passed through countless hands, rubbed against pockets, and spent in transactions will naturally show wear. Scratches, discoloration, and loss of detail reduce its desirability. On the other hand, a penny that has somehow survived more than 40 years in near-perfect condition, its copper luster glowing, Lincoln's hair details sharp, lettering crisp, becomes far more than just a cent. In uncirculated grades, especially those certified by trusted grading companies, the 1980 penny can fetch significant sums. Collectors rely on grading scales, with mint state grades ranging from MS-60 to MS-70. Coins closer to MS-70 are considered nearly flawless and are extremely rare for circulating coins like the penny. When a 1980 penny surfaces in these top-tier conditions, collectors compete fiercely for ownership. The combination of rarity, beauty, and historical significance drives the value higher than most would imagine for a single cent now. It's important to note that most 1980 pennies you find in everyday circulation will not be worth more than 1 cent. They've seen years of use and show signs of wear. But the treasure hunt lies in the details. That jar of pennies tucked away in a closet or that old roll of cents purchased years ago from a bank could contain a gem. Every collector dreams of discovering a pristine example or a rare error coin hiding among the ordinary. The cultural side of coin collecting also plays a role here. Pennies may be small, but they carry stories. Think of the millions of pockets, purses, and cash registers that 1980 pennies passed through. Think of the historical events of the 1980s, the rise of technology, the Cold War tensions, the cultural revolutions, and realize that these coins were present in people's lives during that era. Collectors aren't just buying a piece of metal, they're buying a tangible connection to history, a bridge to the past that they can hold in their hand, and so, the 1980 Lincoln penny becomes more than just a coin. It becomes a piece of American legacy, a reminder of Coppa's final years, a symbol of minting artistry, and a potential treasure waiting to be uncovered. Whether through rare varieties, high-grade examples, or sheer nostalgia, this penny captures the imagination of collectors. After all this history, detail, and exploration, we arrive at the ultimate question: what is the true value of the 1980 penny? While many are worth face value, some rare examples in the right condition or with striking errors have crossed into extraordinary territory at auctions and private sales. And yes, there have been documented cases where a 1980 Lincoln penny, in pristine condition and with the right qualities, has reached an impressive value of $24,674. The penny has always been more than just a small piece of copper. For generations in the United States, The humble 1-cent coin has traveled through millions of hands, from grocery store counters to school lunch tables, from old glass jars to piggy banks hidden under children's beds. But every once in a while, a penny isn't just a penny. Every once in a while, one of these small copper coins holds within it a secret, a mistake, a rarity, or a unique twist in the minting process that transforms it from everyday pocket change into a treasure worth thousands. Today, we are going to take a fascinating journey into one such coin, the 1982 no-mint Mark Lincoln 1-cent penny. A coin that might look ordinary to the untrained eye but hides a story that has captured the imagination of collectors, historians, and treasure hunters alike. To understand why this coin is so remarkable, we first need to step back in time and explore the context of the early 1980s in America. By this point, the Lincoln cent had already been in circulation for over 70 years, first introduced in 1909 to honor the centennial of President Abraham Lincoln's birth. For decades, the Lincoln penny remained one of the most recognized coins in the country, bearing Lincoln's profile on the front and the Lincoln Memorial or wheat stalks on the reverse, depending on the era. But in the early 1980s, something was happening in the United States that directly affected the penny. Copper prices were rising, and it was becoming more expensive for the government to produce each cent than the coin was actually worth. Imagine that, minting pennies at a loss. This forced the U.S. Mint to consider new materials and new ways to manufacture the penny. In 1982, a huge transition took place. For the first time, the Mint shifted away from the traditional 95% copper composition and began creating pennies from a cheaper metal core. The new pennies were made of zinc with a thin copper plating, dramatically reducing production costs. But this sudden transition year introduced complexity, experimentation, and mistakes. And whenever there's change in coin production, there are opportunities for rare and unusual varieties to emerge. The 1982 pennies are especially intriguing because that year alone saw multiple variations in composition, design, and even weight. There were both copper and zinc pennies, large date and small date styles, and mint marks that varied depending on where the coin was struck. For collectors, 1982 became a goldmine of possibilities, with several varieties commanding high premiums today. But one of the most mysterious and sought after is the 1982 penny without a mint mark. Normally, mint marks are small letters on the coin that indicate where it was produced. A D for Denver and S for San Francisco, or no mint mark at all if struck in Philadelphia. But in the case of the 1982 penny, the no mint mark variety is not just a matter of geography. Instead, it's tied to specific minting errors and limited runs that make these coins incredibly valuable in certain conditions. To the casual eye, a 1982 penny looks like any other. It has Lincoln's familiar portrait on the obverse, facing right, with the words, "In God We Trust." Above, Liberty, to the left, and the date to the right. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial stands proudly, flanked by the words, "United States of America," and "E pluribus unum." But for a collector, the real treasure lies not in the design itself but in the subtle differences that distinguish one 1982 penny from another. There are actually 7 major varieties of the 1982 penny. 1982 copper large date, 1982 copper small date, 1982 zinc large date, 1982 zinc small date, 1982 D copper large date, 1982 D zinc large date, 1982 D zinc small date. That alone makes the 1982 series one of the most complicated and interesting in modern U.S. coinage. But then comes the anomaly, the 1982 no mint Mark Lincoln penny. Coins like this are so scarce that they ignite a frenzy when they appear on the open market. Collectors immediately ask, how many exist? How did it happen? What condition are they in? Part of the mystery stems from how mint marks are applied. For decades, mint marks were punched by hand into the dies used to strike coins. Human involvement always increases the chance of mistakes. Sometimes the mint mark was left off entirely. Other times it was misplaced, doubled, or created strange varieties that collectors today prize highly. In 1982, during this critical transitional year, a no mint mark penny became one of those exceptional errors that slipped through the cracks and entered circulation. Think about that for a moment. Somewhere in the early 1980s, as ordinary Americans were buying groceries, paying tolls, or giving their kids pocket change, a few rare no-mint mark pennies were mingling quietly with millions of their ordinary counterparts. Someone may have unknowingly spent one at a gas station or tossed one into a fountain while making a wish. Someone might even have one still tucked away in a jar or an old wallet. That possibility, the chance that one could be sitting in your change right now, is what makes this story so exciting. The key to understanding the rarity of these coins lies in condition and recognition. Many people might have come across a 1982 penny without realizing its importance. To the naked eye, it's just another cent. But to a trained collector, small details make all the difference. And when a rare example surfaces in pristine condition, uncirculated, with no wear, full luster, and sharp details, it can be worth staggering amounts of money. Collectors often talk about mint state grades, measured on the Sheldon scale from 1 to 70. A penny in mint state 65 or higher is already considered a gem, and when it comes to a 1982 no-mint mark Lincoln cent, the value can skyrocket as the grade rises. Each higher grade means sharper strikes, cleaner surfaces, and a coin that has survived decades without the scratches and dents of daily use. Stories from coin auctions illustrate just how much demand there is for coins like this. Imagine being a collector sitting in a crowded auction room, waiting for a coin like the 1982 no-mint mark to come up for bidding. The atmosphere is tense, every eye fixed on the screen as the opening price is announced. Then the bids start flying, numbers climbing higher and higher as collectors, investors, and enthusiasts compete for ownership of a tiny 1-cent coin. To the outside world, it might seem absurd. But to those who know, it's a thrilling chase for history, rarity, and beauty in its smallest form. Beyond the market, though, coins like this represent something more profound. They are tangible artifacts of American history, snapshots of a specific moment in time. The 1982 penny tells a story of economic pressures, industrial change, human error, and the endless search for perfection in a world that inevitably produces flaws. And those flaws, ironically, become treasures. That is why coin collecting, known as numismatics, continues to captivate millions of people around the world. It's not just about money. It's about stories, mysteries, and the hunt for hidden gems among the ordinary. Every coin is a piece of history you can hold in your hand, a link between past and present. And in the case of the 1982 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, it's also a reminder that even the smallest things can become extraordinary. So, if you ever find yourself sifting through change, take a closer look. You might be holding a coin that has the power to change your life. It's the thrill of the unknown, the dream that the next penny you find could be something truly special. And now, the question you've been waiting for: how much can one of these rare coins be worth today? In the right condition, authenticated, and graded by experts, a 1982 no-mint mark Lincoln 1-cent penny has reached the jaw-dropping value of $33,887. Welcome back to World Information HD, the channel where rare coins, hidden treasures, and forgotten pieces of American history come to life. Today, we're diving deep into the world of a coin that most people might pass over without a second thought. Yet, collectors, numismatists, and enthusiasts know that certain quarters can carry extraordinary stories and even more extraordinary values. Our focus today is the 1983 D-Mint mark Washington quarter dollar. Now, think for a moment. How many times have you held a quarter in your hand, used it to buy a soda, feed a parking meter, or toss it into a wishing fountain? For most, quarters are just another piece of spare change. But here's the fascinating truth: not all quarters are equal. Some have quirks, errors, or unique characteristics that make them incredibly valuable. And one such coin, minted in Denver in the year 1983, has gained a reputation as one of the most sought-after Washington quarters from the modern era. To understand why, we need to step back in time to 1983. America was in the middle of change. The early 80s were defined by shifting economies, bold political moves, and cultural transformations. Music was booming with the rise of MTV, technology was evolving with the personal computer, and the U.S. Mint was busier than ever producing coins for a growing nation. Among these coins was the Washington quarter. Introduced in 1932 to honor George Washington's 200th birthday, the quarter had become one of the most recognizable coins in circulation. But what makes the 1983 quarter so different? After all, millions were minted. At first glance, it looks just like any other Washington quarter, with Washington's profile on the obverse and the proud eagle on the reverse. Yet, the devil is in the details. The Denver Mint, responsible for the D Mint mark on these coins, produced countless quarters that year. But because of the era's minting practices, economic conditions, and an important policy decision, surviving high-grade examples of the 1983 D Washington quarter are unusually scarce. Here's why. In 1982, the U.S. Mint stopped producing official mint sets for collectors. These sets had previously been the primary source of pristine, uncirculated coins. Without these sets in 1982 and 1983, the only way to obtain flawless quarters from those years was directly through circulation. And circulation is rough on coins. Think of the scratches, nicks, and where that happened when coins pass through thousands of hands, vending machines, and pockets. By the time a 1983 quarter had been in circulation for a while, its condition had already deteriorated. That makes high-quality, untouched examples of the 1983 D quarter extremely rare today. Collectors quickly realized that while finding a 1983 quarter in everyday pocket change wasn't hard, finding one in mint-state condition was nearly impossible. And in the world of numismatics, condition is everything. A coin with sharp detail, no scratches, and its original luster intact can be worth hundreds, or even thousands, of times more than the same coin in worn condition. But the story of the 1983 D Washington quarter doesn't stop at scarcity alone. Minting errors also play a big role in why certain coins from this year are so valuable. During mass production, even the smallest mistake at the Denver Mint could result in a rare variety. Off-center strikes, double die obverse, weak strikes, or misaligned dies have been recorded on some 1983 quarters. These errors add an entirely new layer of intrigue, making an already scarce coin even more desirable. Imagine stumbling upon a quarter in your change jar and noticing that Washington's profile seems slightly doubled, or that the lettering looks off. To the average person, it might seem like a simple flaw. But to a collector, it could mean a windfall. The thrill of discovery is part of what keeps coin collecting alive and exciting to this day. Another fascinating aspect of the 1983 D quarter is how it reflects the transition of American coinage in the late 20th century. By this time, quarters were no longer made of silver. Since 1965, the mint had shifted to a copper-nickel clad composition, 2 layers of copper-nickel around a pure copper core. While these clad coins don't have intrinsic precious metal value, they hold immense historical and collectible worth when unique circumstances, like those surrounding the 1983 quarter, come into play. Let's not forget the eagle on the reverse, a design that had graced the quarter since 1932. This was one of the final decades before the statehood quarters program transformed the design landscape of U.S. coinage. Today, the eagle reverse is a nostalgic reminder of a simpler time in American numismatics, further adding to the appeal of these quarters among collectors. Now, let's talk about condition once more, because it cannot be overstated how important it is for the 1983 D Washington quarter. Circulated examples, those with visible wear, are common and usually worth face value or just slightly above. But when a coin surfaces in mint state condition, graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC, it becomes something entirely different. These grading companies use a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 representing a flawless, perfect coin. The difference between a grade of MS63 and MS67 can mean hundreds or thousands of dollars in value. Stories abound of lucky finds, where someone casually holding on to old coins discovers a 1983 D quarter in superb condition, only to later learn it was worth an incredible sum. This possibility keeps collectors, hobbyists, and treasure hunters constantly on the lookout. And it's not just about the money. For many, it's about preserving a piece of American history, about holding in their hands a coin that has survived decades against the odds, still shining as if it just left the Denver Mint. The mystique of the 1983 D Washington Quarter has made it a highlight in coin collecting circles, and its story is often told at conventions, in numismatic journals, and across online communities of collectors. Every so often, one of these coins appears at auction, sparking bidding wars as enthusiasts compete to secure a piece of this numismatic legend. It's remarkable to think that a simple quarter, something so ordinary, so overlooked, can hold such incredible value. It reminds us that treasure is often hiding in plain sight. Next time you handle your change, take a closer look. Examine the details, the mint marks, the wear. You might just be holding history in your hands. As we reach the heart of today's story, it's important to remember that coin collecting is not just about profit. It's about passion, curiosity, and the stories behind each piece of metal. Every coin has traveled, witnessed exchanges, and passed through countless lives. Some may have been carried in a soldier's pocket, used in a child's piggy bank, or saved as a lucky charm. The 1983 D Quarter, though just one of many millions, tells its own tale of rarity, resilience, and reward. Collectors who have managed to secure pristine examples guard them closely, knowing that the market continues to recognize and reward their scarcity. And the highest recorded values achieved by these coins leave no doubt that the 1983 D Washington Quarter dollar is far more than just a piece of spare change. So, what is the ultimate value of this remarkable coin? While most will never be worth more than 25 cents in everyday life, a high-grade example of the 1983 D Mint Mark Washington Quarter dollar has been sold for an astonishing $66,553. Welcome back to the channel, where today we are diving into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of modern United States coinage. While many collectors spend their time chasing after older silver quarters from the mid-20th century, or even colonial-era rarities, the truth is that even more recent coins can hold secrets, surprises, and hidden treasures that most people overlook. One of the best examples of this comes from a coin minted not very long ago, during the 1990s, when the Washington Quarter still held its classic eagle reverse design before the state quarter program began. Today, we're talking about the 1995 Philadelphia Mint Washington Quarter dollar, and why this everyday pocket change could, under the right circumstances, be worth an astonishing amount of money. When people hear the year 1995, they don't usually think of valuable coins. After all, this is a relatively modern issue, and millions upon millions of quarters were being produced by the United States Mint each year. With over 1 billion Washington quarters struck that year across Philadelphia and Denver, most assume these coins could never be worth more than face value. But as any collector knows, it's not just the date that matters. It's the condition, the mint mark, and sometimes the striking anomalies that make all the difference. Let's step back for a moment and set the scene. The Washington Quarter was first introduced in 1932 to commemorate the bicentennial of George Washington's birth. Designed by sculptor John Flanagan, the coin featured the familiar profile of the nation's first president on the obverse, with a bold eagle spreading its wings on the reverse. For decades, this design remained largely unchanged, with only minor adjustments. By 1995, the coin was already in its 63rd year of production, and the country was just a few years away from beginning the wildly popular 50-state quarters program. So the coins from the mid-1990s marked the very last era of the traditional eagle reverse design before it was replaced forever. The Philadelphia Mint, identified by the small letter P, found on the obverse of the coin just to the right of Washington's ponytail, produced hundreds of millions of these quarters. But here's the key point: not all quarters are created equal. The way the minting process works, each die used to strike coins wears down over time. Sometimes the dies are polished incorrectly, sometimes they clash, and sometimes tiny mistakes slip through quality control. These small details can create varieties that collectors go crazy for. And when a coin survives in pristine condition, free from circulation wear, its value can skyrocket. Most 1995 Philadelphia quarters were spent at grocery stores, laundromats, gas stations, and arcade machines across America. Millions were tossed into change jars and later deposited in banks, mixed and mingled until they became just another coin in a sea of billions. But a select few were set aside in uncirculated rolls, bags, and mint sets, protected from the rough handling of daily use. These coins, with their original mint luster, razor-sharp details, and clean fields, are the ones collectors chase. In the world of coin grading, a difference in grade can mean the difference between a 50-cent coin and a 5-figure rarity. To understand why, let's talk about grading. Coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 being a perfect coin showing no marks or imperfections even under magnification. A typical 1995 quarter pulled from circulation might grade anywhere from very fine to extremely fine, meaning it shows noticeable wear on Washington's cheek, jaw, and hair, along with flattened feathers on the eagle. Such coins are worth little more than their face value. But if a coin has never circulated and remains in brilliant uncirculated condition, it can grade MS 60 or higher. The higher the grade climbs, MS 65, MS 67, MS 68, the rarer the coin becomes, because almost no quarters survive in that flawless condition. At the Philadelphia Mint in 1995, the sheer size of the mintage means quality control was not as strict as with smaller issues. Dies were used until they were heavily worn, creating weak strikes, blurry details, and unattractive surfaces. That's why a sharply struck coin with a bold P mint mark and blazing luster is so rare. It's not just a matter of being uncirculated, it's about being uncommonly beautiful for this date and mint. Now let's add another layer: errors and varieties. Collectors know that error coins are like lightning in a bottle. They occur randomly and often in very small numbers, making them instant treasures. The 1995 Philadelphia Washington quarter is known to have produced some fascinating errors. Off-center strikes, where the design is misaligned, can show dramatic blank areas on the coin. Double strikes, where the coin is hit twice by the dies, create overlapping images. There are even examples of broad strikes, missing clad layers, and clipped planchets. These errors can transform an ordinary coin into something unique, and error collectors are willing to pay premium prices. Another factor is the proof set. While proof coins are not circulation strikes, they were also produced in 1995 at the San Francisco Mint. These coins were specially made with polished dies and planchets, creating mirror-like surfaces and frosted details. Though the Philadelphia circulation strikes are our focus today, the existence of the proofs reminds us just how varied coinage can be even in a single year. So how does a collector go about finding one of these gems? The truth is, it takes patience, luck, and sometimes a keen eye for detail. Many enthusiasts still search through rolls of quarters from banks, hoping to stumble upon a rare high-grade survivor. Others attend coin shows, browse online auctions, or purchase coins certified by professional grading services like PCGS and NGC. For a coin like the 1995 P Washington quarter, certification is key, because it provides proof of grade and authenticity. When a coin reaches a top population grade, meaning there are only a handful known at that level, its value can leap into extraordinary territory. Let's talk about market demand for a moment. The Washington Quarter series has always been popular, but in recent years, collectors have developed a stronger appreciation for modern issues in top condition. This shift has created record-breaking prices at auction for coins that, decades ago, would have been overlooked. When collectors compete for registry sets, collections of coins graded and ranked by services, they push values higher. That's why a seemingly common coin like a 1995 P quarter can suddenly become the star of a bidding war when it appears at auction in an elite grade. The story of the 1995 P quarter also speaks to a broader truth in numismatics. History isn't just in ancient or colonial coins. It's in the change we carry every day. Think of all the hands a typical quarter passes through, the decades of commerce it represents, the stories it could tell. Finding a perfect survivor from such a common issue is like finding a time capsule, a little piece of 1995 preserved in mint condition, untouched by time. That sense of discovery, of holding history in your hand, is what drives collectors to search tirelessly. And for those who doubt that modern coins can be valuable, the auction records speak for themselves. Time and again, collectors have paid staggering sums for coins that, to the untrained eye, look just like the ones in your pocket. The key is knowing what to look for, appreciating rarity, and understanding the passion that fuels this hobby. Every once in a while, a coin reminds us that treasures can be hidden in plain sight. The Philadelphia Mint mark may seem like a small letter, but it carries immense weight in the world of coin collecting. It tells us where the coin was made, ties it to a specific history, and adds to its identity. In 1995, those tiny P quarters poured out of the mint by the millions, but only a few were destined for greatness. Those are the coins that capture the imagination, the ones that inspire collectors to keep searching, roll after roll, year after year. So the next time you're handed a quarter in change, don't dismiss it as just 25 cents. Take a closer look. The date might surprise you. The mint mark might tell a story. And who knows, you might just be holding a coin worth far more than you ever imagined. In fact, one extraordinary example of a 1995 Philadelphia Mint Washington quarter dollar, preserved in remarkable condition and recognized for its rarity, has sold for an impressive $34,875. The world of coin collecting is filled with surprises, and some of the most modern coins in circulation today are quietly becoming treasures that collectors are desperately searching for. While many people think only the coins from the 1800s or early 1900s have value, the truth is that even coins minted just a few years ago can hold secrets worth uncovering. One of the best examples is the United States of America 2021 P Mint Mark Washington quarter dollar. This coin might still be in your pocket change, sitting unnoticed in a jar of coins, or hiding at the bottom of your drawer. But under the right circumstances, this very coin has been known to command a staggering value among collectors. Today, let's take a deep dive into the story of this fascinating quarter, its background, its features, why collectors want it, and how it could turn an ordinary 25-cent piece into something worth thousands. To truly appreciate the 2021 Washington quarter, it's important to understand the history of the design and the role of the Philadelphia Mint, represented by the P Mint mark. The Washington quarter has been in circulation since 1932, originally created to commemorate the 200th birthday of George Washington. Over the decades, the design has gone through several changes, from the classic eagle reverse to the 50-state quarters program that ran from 1999 to 2008, followed by the America the Beautiful series, and finally the Washington Crossing the Delaware design introduced in 2021. That year was very special because it marked the transition between series, making the 2021 quarters historically significant. Collectors recognized this immediately, and coins from this year began drawing attention even before they hit circulation. The Philadelphia Mint, marked with the small letter P, is the main hub for producing circulation coins in the United States. Every year, billions of coins pour out of its presses, but not all coins are created equal. Some come out with striking errors, unusual die varieties, or unique qualities that make them stand out. These are the coins that collectors pursue, and the 2021 P Washington quarter dollar has already entered this category. The sheer number minted doesn't reduce its value, because what matters most to collectors is condition, rarity of errors, and historical context. The 2021 design chosen for the quarter was Washington Crossing the Delaware. A bold image of General George Washington standing at the helm of a boat during the famous Revolutionary War crossing of the icy Delaware River on Christmas night in 1776. This design, though only used for 1 year, quickly became a symbol of courage and leadership. Having such a short production run instantly made it more collectible, because unlike the multi-year State Series or America the Beautiful program, this design was a limited issue. That means fewer examples exist in high-grade condition compared to other coins that circulated longer. Now, let's talk about what makes certain 2021 P quarters so valuable. First, condition plays a huge role. Most of the coins we see in our change have scratches, dings, and wear from circulation. But the few that remain in pristine, uncirculated condition are the ones collectors crave. Coins graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC with top ratings, such as MS67 or MS68, are rare, and the higher the grade, the more impressive the auction prices. Imagine finding a flawless 2021 quarter in your pocket before it had a chance to be damaged. That alone could make it worth hundreds. But the real excitement comes from era coins and varieties. The Philadelphia Mint, producing millions of coins per day, is no stranger to striking mistakes. Errors such as double dies, die cracks, off-center strikes, or even misaligned dies can dramatically increase the value of a coin. For example, if the lettering or details on the quarter show signs of doubling, collectors will immediately identify it as a double die variety, and such coins are often auctioned for extraordinary sums. Even minor errors like die chips near Washington's head or along the rim can fetch far more than face value, because collectors enjoy hunting down these unique quirks of the minting process. The 2021 P quarter also gained attention because of its timing. It came out during a period when coin collecting saw a resurgence in popularity, partly due to people spending more time at home during the pandemic and rediscovering old hobbies. Many began searching their spare change, and as news spread of valuable modern coins, interest exploded. The Washington crossing the Delaware design stood out not only for its artistry but also for being a one-year-only type coin, ensuring its place in history and guaranteeing strong demand for years to come. For those who want to know if they have a valuable 2021 P Washington quarter, there are some key things to look for. Start by examining the coin under good light. Look closely at Washington's profile, the lettering around the rim, and the details of the boat and soldiers on the reverse. If you notice any doubling of the letters or numbers, unusual raised bumps, or a misalignment, you could have a valuable error coin. Next, check the condition. If your coin has sharp details, no scratches, and original luster, it may be worth grading. Collectors are willing to pay top dollar for coins that look as though they just left the mint presses. Another factor that adds value is the growing trend of registry sets. Collectors who compete to build the finest sets of coins by year, mint mark, and grade will pay premiums for the highest quality examples. This competition among collectors ensures that even modern coins like the 2021 P quarter remain highly sought after, especially in top condition. Of course, one of the most fascinating parts of modern coin collecting is that people can still find treasures in circulation. Unlike older rare coins that are almost impossible to find outside of auctions or dealers, modern valuable coins can still pop up in everyday change. Imagine buying a cup of coffee and getting back a quarter that, unbeknownst to you at first, could be worth thousands. This dream keeps collectors searching, and the 2021 P quarter has become a modern treasure hunt. Beyond its value, the 2021 Washington quarter carries cultural and historical weight. Washington crossing the Delaware is one of the most iconic moments in American history, symbolizing determination against overwhelming odds. The coin itself serves as a reminder of resilience and patriotism, and owning one is like holding a piece of that history in your hand. For collectors, it's not just about money, it's about preserving a story, a legacy, and a tangible artifact of American pride. As we move further away from 2021, these coins will only become harder to find in top condition. Circulation will take its toll, and fewer uncirculated examples will remain available. Error coins and varieties, once identified and sold, often disappear into private collections, further reducing the supply on the market. This scarcity will naturally drive prices higher, as demand from collectors continues to outpace availability. Many people overlook coins minted in the last decade, assuming they hold no value. But stories like the 2021 P quarter prove otherwise. The combination of limited design use, potential mint errors, and collector enthusiasm has turned this modern coin into something extraordinary. Even casual collectors now keep an eye on their quarters, hoping to discover a hidden gem. So, the next time you receive change, don't rush to spend it without a second glance. Take a moment to inspect your quarters carefully. That simple habit could one day reward you with a rare and valuable find. Every coin tells a story, and sometimes that story includes a surprising ending worth thousands of dollars. The United States of America 2021 P Mint Mark Washington quarter dollar is not just an ordinary piece of change. It represents a bridge between history and modern collecting, between everyday transactions and the world of valuable treasures. Whether you're an experienced numismatist or just someone curious about the coins in your pocket, this quarter reminds us that value can hide in plain sight, waiting for the right pair of eyes to recognize it. And yes, some examples of this coin have sold for as much as $18,764.